Members of Indivisible groups or neighborhood action coalitions or other organizations that are connected with Indivisible, whether or not the word Indivisible is in their name? Awesome. How many people do we have here who are not connected to any particular activist organization? Whether you are a seasoned citizen activist or whether you're a first-timer who's never done anything like this before, we are really, really glad that you're here tonight, and we're looking forward to making sure that everybody tonight leaves this hall feeling inspired, feeling hopeful, feeling empowered to change this future that we find ourselves in now. So thank you all for being here. For those of you who don't know, the Indivisible Guide was drafted by a group of former congressional staffers who witnessed firsthand how the Tea Party was able to succeed in blocking Obama and Democrats, eventually winning control of Congress and the White House. The Indivisible Guide takes a few pages from the Tea Party playbook in order to organize a Tea Party for the left and for progressive values. There's a little quarter sheet handout that was out on the table in front that allows you, it shows you the link where you can find more about the group, download the guide, and find the closest group to you. We encourage you to do that. Otherwise, I would like to give thanks to Seattle Unity Church for hosting our event tonight. We had originally planned for this event to be at a different church, which was roughly half the size, and we were delighted to find out that the overwhelming response required us to scramble and find another larger venue at the last minute. So again, we are very, very thankful to Seattle Unity Church. And I'd invite you, if you haven't done so yet, take a minute to look around and appreciate the surroundings that we find ourselves in. I was told that the 12 banners hanging on the wall to your left and right were actually created after 9/11, and they are meant to represent different faith traditions throughout the world. The one in the far back there representing Islam, and that was the first one, which was generated after 9/11. And look around and I'm unfortunately forgetting specifically which ones are which. My old eyeball can't even tell which ones they are, so you can figure it out or ask Diana in the back. Diana, can you wave your hand? Yes. Diana is our site manager, and she is We also want to honor the Duwamish people on whose ancestral land that we are meeting in here tonight. We also want to honor our veterans. Can I ask any veterans in the house, would you stand please so we can give thanks to you? Any veterans? We want to give special thanks to those brave men and women who have put their lives on the lines to be our defenders. And remember that we are probably going to be asking them to step forward again to help us fight for the ideals and the principles that this country was founded on. We need you, and we will be in touch. Thank you. We also have a special guest with us. Her name is Rachel Bergson. And she just happens to be Representative Pramila Jayapal's district director. Rachel, are you in the house? Can you stand up and wave, please? Representative Jayapal, of course, could not be with us tonight because she's actually at a town hall at that time. What? Yeah. No, not again. I'm sorry.
Hosting a town hall on March 6th.
March 6th. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have read the note that you gave me. Yes. She is hosting a town hall event of her own on Monday, March 6th at Seattle Town Hall downtown. Details will be posted on Seattle-area Indivisible website. So my name is Jonathan Tong. I am lead organizer for Indivisible in North Seattle. And I want to give special thanks to a couple other folks who organized this. In case it hasn't been obvious to you already, none of us are paid professional organizers. We're just doing this in our spare time. Yes, we are. I'm a school teacher. Can you tell? I'm using my teacher chair. Not Lake Terrace High School. Go Hawks. Shameless plug. But I bring that up to remind you, we apologize for any of the inconveniences and speed bumps we hit along the way. Just please know that however badly we screwed up doing this tonight, it's not really that different from you and 3 other people sitting next to you trying to pull this event together. So we thank you for your understanding and for your support. Having said that, I want to introduce the 3 other organizers who helped us put this event together. Alex Fair with Seattle Indivisible. Are you in the house? Right over there, ladies and gentlemen. We would not have it happen without him. And Leslie Brown of Edmonds Neighborhood Action Coalition. Is she here? Where are you, Leslie? Right over there. Would not have happened without him. And is Larry here? Larry Burkhart? Larry is with Indivisible Coupeville. Believe it or not, he has driven all the way down from Coupeville. And just to tell you what kind of guy Larry is, the reason he's not here is because he's probably standing in front of Blaine Memorial United Methodist Church right now, directing all the people who went there by mistake because they didn't know about the venue change. He's directing them here. He drove all the way down to Coupeville to do that. Larry, can we give him a hand again? So, without any further ado, I did want to, again, thank everyone for coming tonight. Town halls are a great way for members of Congress to get to know their constituents and to hear their concerns and their hopes for the future. They're a great forum for our Democratic representatives to harness all of the energy that we see here in the room tonight and to let us know how we can effectively help them stand up to the regressive Trump agenda. We're sorry that neither the senators nor anyone from their staff will be joining us tonight. We had hoped that the senators would attend in person and attempted to coordinate with their offices on scheduling. We've been working with them for weeks on this. We also invited a member of the Senator's Seattle staff to attend if for any reason the senators could not come in person. But we have a great program here tonight and we're really glad that you're here. We're still going to be delivering your questions and your messages to the senators, and we're requesting now that Senators Murray and Cantwell schedule a town hall meeting for the next congressional recess. So, just to make the point a little bit stronger, we realized that we have some of the media here, mainstream media, who are gathered with us. Give thanks for them for being here. But we also wanted to create our own special little social media viral moment to share. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do the mic check thing again, and I'm going to say a few words at a time. And when I say a few words, I'm going to ask you to repeat those few words after me. We're going to get this all on video. It'll probably end up being about a couple minutes altogether. And when you get it, when you see it on the Seattle Indivisible pages or whatever, you go ahead, share it on your own social networks, and let's make this sucker go viral. Sound good? Does it make sense? Mic check! Mic check! Mic check! Mic check! We the people! We the people! Are gathered here today! To let our members of Congress
we appreciate their courage in opposing unjust policies based on corruption, fear, and falsehoods. And that we appreciate their courage in standing up for progressive values of inclusion, fairness, and truth. But we need them now to demand an independent investigation into Trump's dealings with Russia. This is not about Democrats versus Republicans. This is about protecting our democracy. And the future of our republic. We're also calling on our senators to oppose and delay every cabinet nominee, every Supreme Court nominee, everything Trump does until he releases his tax returns and gets rid of his conflicts of interest. As every legitimate president for the last 40 years has done. Lastly, we call upon our senators why neither they nor any of their staff are here tonight to meet their constituents face to face to receive their thanks and to listen to their concerns. It is their job to do that as our elected representatives. And it is our job as your constituents to hold you accountable to represent us. We expect to see you at a town hall during the next congressional recess in April. We are indivisible. We are organizing. And we are growing. We are indivisible. Well, thank you everybody for coming. We'll see you next year.
So now let's go ahead and do the thing that we really gathered here for tonight, and that's to have some questions and answers. We have a distinguished panel here who are ready to answer questions, because with or without our senators, of course, we still have the stories, we still have the concerns, and we still have the questions to ask. And we're going to go ahead and do that. We're videotaping, we're live streaming. I did want to encourage anybody sitting in the building tonight or watching outside, you can still submit your questions. If you are watching on the live streaming page, you can submit questions. We have two people, Louis and Nicole, who are monitoring our social media tonight. Nicole and Louis, can you guys wave your hands? Where are you guys at? Right up front. Give me a hand, ladies and gentlemen. You can submit your questions on the live stream page or on Seattle Indivisible Twitter page. We will be monitoring, and you just might get to hear your questions. But, yes? Hashtag WA Town Hall, also, for folks more with it than me. Still trying to figure out the Twitter thing. So before we get started, just wanted to make sure that we do all agree on some ground rules for civility. I think it's safe to say there are a lot of people in the room who will agree with anything anybody says at any given moment. It's also probably safe to say there's probably a lot of people in the room who will disagree vehemently with things that are said at some point. So just want to make it clear on behalf of everybody here. It's okay to agree or to disagree with anything that somebody says, but it's not okay to shut down the speakers. Okay? If you agree with something somebody says, thank you. If you want to show that you agree with something that anybody says at any point, you go ahead, hold up your green agree signs, and that sends a message. If you disagree with anything anybody says at any time, go ahead, hold up your red disagree signs. That's also a good way to send a message. But remember, we all came here to listen. We all came here to ask questions. Nobody wants to sit here and get shouted down by some, well, you fill in the blank. You know who I'm talking about, yeah. So, can we agree on basic ground rules of civility? Go ahead, raise your green signs if you agree. Thank you. Raise your hand if you disagree with our basic ground rules of civility. Thank you. That's what I was hoping. All right. So we are going to break our question and answers into two sections. There will be a structured question and answer for roughly 1 hour involving healthcare, immigration, the Russia connection, and Gorsuch Supreme Court. Those will be the four issues that we really wanted to focus on in particular and field questions on. And we have panelists here who have volunteered their time to answer questions about that. After that, we're going to have roughly 40-45 minutes of unstructured questions and answers. That's when you can ask questions on any other topic. So I'll say this one more time. We're going to have structured questions and answers on healthcare, immigration, Russia connection, Supreme Court, in that order for about 10-20 minutes each. And then we're going to open up to unstructured questions and answers. Okay, does that make sense? All right, sounds good. So we will ask you, when you ask a question, in order to honor everyone else here, give everyone a chance to ask, we're going to ask you to keep your questions short to the point. But if you do have a story of how you personally are impacted by some policy decision, we really, really want to hear those. So please, when it's time, I'll let you know. Think about it. If you have a story to share, let us know. We want you to have a chance to share that. Otherwise, again, remember that the odds are you're really probably not going to get called on to speak. So that's what the little half sheets were for, that had the little messages to Congress, that you could write those in. And we talked about that already. Sound good?
Yeah.
So let us begin by introducing our panelists. We have 5 distinguished panelists, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to read them in order that I have on the paper, and maybe you can stand or wave your hand. We have Katie Wilkins joining us. She's a recent graduate from Lund University in Sweden with a master's in public health. She wrote her master's thesis on access to health care in California after implementation of the Affordable Care Act. She is also a recent graduate of the Emerging Voices in Global Health. Give her a hand, please. We also have Nathan Resick. He's a member of Seattle-area Indivisible. He's helped organize the Show Up and Resist Trump rally, Tuesday rallies in front of the federal building. And he is passionate about Russian influence over the election. Give him a hand. We also have Tiffany Hankins. She is the executive director of NARAL Pro-Choice Washington. This is, of course, the state's largest grassroots advocacy organization fighting for reproductive freedom. They work to uphold the right to decide if and when to start or expand a family through legislative and electoral advocacy. She started community organizing for reproductive rights in her hometown of Pensacola, Florida. And prior to being named executive director in December of last year, she worked as an organizer at NARAL for 7 years. Give her a hand. We also have Renee Flores. He is an assistant professor of sociology at the University of Washington. He has a PhD in sociology and social policy from Princeton University. In his work, he focuses on immigration policy, public opinion, and social stratification in the U.S. and Europe. Give it a hand. And lastly, we have David Loud, representing Puget Sound Advocates for Retirement Action. He worked 46 years in the healthcare field and the movement for healthcare justice. The last 10 years for Congressman McDermott on healthcare and veterans. He retired in 2015. But apparently he's still working. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start by looking at the healthcare issue. My timekeeper is going to set the timer for 20 minutes. We really want to try to honor people's time, understand that everyone came here to ask about particular things, so we're going to do the best we can to stick to the timeline we have. And Josh, you're going to give me a signal in like 5 minutes and whatever. Sounds good. Okay. So before we take questions on healthcare, we had a couple people that we invited in here to share their stories and how their lives are directly affected by this particular issue. Is Savannah Cook here? Savannah, would you come on up and speak with us here, please?
My name is Savannah, and I'm 28 years old. A little over 4 months ago, I was struck by a distracted driver while walking in a crosswalk with a walk signal. My left shoulder and pelvis were fractured, and my right leg was crushed under the back wheels of her SUV. I had 4 surgeries in 6 weeks and was not able to return to my job for over 3 months. She had the state minimum of car insurance, which is around $30,000, and my bill from Harborview was around $300,000. So, and a lot of times when I tell this story to people, they say, well, you can sue her. But unfortunately, that's not really the way it works. Unless you are struck by a millionaire, you basically end up paying a bunch of court fees, and they claim bankruptcy, and nothing comes about it. So, fortunately, I have health insurance. It's not through the ACA, it's through my job at the University of Washington, but experiencing this and really getting to understand what happens in this scenario, it really struck home for me, obviously. I have a lot of friends who are servers or babysitters or making money in ways with jobs that don't come with health insurance. And I'm just terrified that they're gonna lose their health insurance. I guess the point that I'm trying to drive home today is that you don't have to be sick to be affected by the repeal of the ACA. You can be 28 years old, walking your dog, and be harmed by somebody else's negligence and be left with financial ruin. So this is something I find completely and utterly unacceptable, confusing, and I don't understand it, because I believe that healthcare is a human right. I'd love for you all to say that with me. Can you say it? Healthcare is a human right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And also we have Kelly Hill. Is she here? Am I misreading my schedule here? Oh, sorry. Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah.
Hello. So, first of all, I'm going to start out by saying I've been living with HIV for 17 years. I'm fortunate that I have had health insurance to work at certain times in my life. I did work for an HIV nonprofit for almost 10 years, but there's been times where I've relied on Medicaid to have life-saving medications and also have access to a doctor that specializes in HIV and AIDS. And I don't think I'd be alive, actually, if it wasn't for having access to Medicaid when I needed it. So one other thing I want to say is that limiting the scope of Medicaid will leave many without access to life-saving treatment, and many of those are women. Often women are not thought about when we think about HIV and AIDS. In addition, I am a single mother of a child with a significant intellectual disability. He is nonverbal, and he will never be able to live unattended. This is the issue that I really want to focus on the most, because I think people with disabilities, in general, are often overlooked. They're invisible in our community. And any chance I get to get up and talk about people with disabilities, you bet I'm going to do it. The Affordable Care Act allows for personal care support to come into my home. I don't have a caregiver at the moment, but it allows for personal care support folks to come into my home to help me support my child, which benefits me and my child, clearly. And also, the alternative to that is that I make sure that he does not get put into an institution, because he qualifies to be institutionalized. And it actually costs the state less for my son to remain in home with me than to be in an institution. So, I think it's critical that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and physical disabilities, any disability for that matter, be a part of the discussion about repeal and replace to ensure that any changes meet the needs of people with disabilities. And lastly, well, I know I don't have a lot of time, I also have my master's in counseling and my licensed mental health counselor associate. I've worked with folks in community mental health, all who are receiving services because they have access to Medicaid and expanded Medicaid. And for those seriously impacted by mental illness, and expanded Medicaid has offered access to quality community-based services that help keep them in the community and out of hospitals and jails. They do not belong in hospitals and jails. Now, Congress is threatening to undo that by repealing the ACA, which is unacceptable. So I want to know what our senators are going to do to help ensure that the most vulnerable in our communities have access to life-saving health care and services that let them be active in our community. Thank you.
So we're going to go ahead and open up to questions at this time. There are two microphones up front. There's one over here, and there's one over here. We're going to ask you to just be asking questions about health care. Remember, we'll get to those other topics after this. But we want you to think about, in particular, if you have a story to share for our senators of how your life is being affected, this would be a great time to come on up and share.
Time limit? Time limit? Can you mention time limit?
We're going to ask you to try to keep your question to maybe 2 minutes, 1 minute, just so that we can hear from the most people. Might also consider trying to balance out male-female voices so that we don't have an imbalance there. Maybe folks whose voices don't necessarily get heard all the time because they kind of tend to get marginalized, shall we say. We'd love to have you come up to the front and have you a chance to ask a question. I see 1, 2 folks over here, 3. Yeah, again, if you guys can like arrange yourselves so that you're alternating male and female, that would be like super cool.
Rock, paper, scissors again.
And we can even start with a woman. What do you think about that, huh?
All right, I'm your timekeeper.
Go ahead.
Well, hello, good evening. The Obamacare has really saved my life. I was a healthy lady for 10 years. I was just coasting on no insurance whatsoever because everything was fine. And then I got hit with brain cancer. And it's not in my family. It came out of nowhere, really. And 2 weeks in the hospital, 2 brain surgeries, chemo, radiation. That is just so much money. And Medicare and Medicaid they kept me from going bankrupt and my whole family. And I'm standing here today telling you guys about that.
Thank you so much. And we encourage you to get connected with some organization that can take your story and pass that on. Thank you. Next.
When my mother, who is a never smoker, was diagnosed with lung cancer in 2011, we learned that things like radon and air pollution can cause it. And with the ACA being under constant attack since its implementation, and with environmental protections being rolled back, and with even boroughs in New York having poisonous tap water now, what's to be done about added environmental dangers to health, even if the ACA was untouched, which it won't be?
It's a good question.
If I have,
You got it.
You're good.
okay. If I understood your question, it's how environmental issues can get addressed as healthcare issues, even if the ACA stays in place. Is that it?
No, that's not it. I mean, my question was, in its current state, will the ACA be strong enough to deal with the exponentially rising influx of sick people and defective babies?
Okay. Let me just say, the ACA was a huge step forward, but it only took us, you might say, as my former boss Jim McDermott said, now we're on the beaches. Now we're on the beaches. And clearly, the ACA by itself is not sufficient to our needs, either to cover everyone in the country or to cover them adequately. We need to do more. We need to save the ACA, but we need to do a lot more.
I would also like to add to that as well. It's really important that we don't go backwards, and that's why we're advocating for the maintaining of the ACA, because we also don't want to see more stories that we have heard from before 2014 of people going bankrupt or not being able to get the care that they've already that they need. So.
It's okay with you in order to alternate male female. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm the mom of a child who had a stroke 6 days after birth, and then at 17 years of age got intractable epilepsy. For those of you that don't know what epilepsy is, that's where you have either grand mal seizures that leave you exhausted and unable to cope with life for days on end afterwards, or you have petit mal seizures that can happen, in my daughter's case, up to 20 times a day, leaving you exhausted and laying on the couch, unable to even lift your head to watch TV. My daughter currently is on Medicaid. She will not be able to live if she is not on Medicaid. Beyond that, if she's still a minor, so she is able to get help with drug coverage costs through Children's Hospital and Medicaid and our health insurance. Without those, her drug costs would be over $1,000 a month, which we cannot afford to pay. I am very disappointed that both Senators Murray and Cantwell voted against allowing lower prescription pharmacy drugs into the United States from Canada. We need that. And I want to point out, they said it was, hang on, I want to get this out because there's misinformation and I want to make sure that everyone understands this. My daughter's drugs do not come from the United States, even though they are from American pharmacies. They are coming from China, and they are coming from India. They are the same drugs that are being imported to Canada. Safety is not a reason. If you are concerned with safety, we would ensure that our prescription drugs were manufactured on cleaner facilities and lines in the United States. So saying that we cannot import drugs at a lower cost that are from the exact same pharmaceutical industries that are from the United States is not, it's just not taking care of your citizens, Senators Cantwell and Murray. One last thing is, I want to know that they're going to do everything in their power to advance single-payer health care, since we're the only industrialized nation that does not take care of its citizens in regards to health care. We need to get the insurance companies out of health care.
If only the senators were here to respond to that question. Yes.
You're absolutely right on every point. And I want to make sure people know that while the ACA has gotten the lion's share of attention in what's going on with the Republican agenda, that's not all. Because they're after the ACA, Medicaid, and Medicare, not to mention Social Security. They're after all of it. They're after all of it. And the way they want to attack Medicaid is to turn it from a defined benefit program that is funded 50% by the federal government, no matter how many people become eligible and get in the program in every state. They want to turn it into a block. Each state will get a certain amount of money, and it will be up to the state to figure out who to cover and what to cover. It's a guarantee. It's a guarantee that fewer people will be covered for less benefits. So Medicaid is also in the crosshairs of the Republican agenda, make no mistake, as is Medicare. And in the case of Medicaid, even if the expansion of Medicaid under the ACA is carried out by this Congress and this President, even if it's only that piece, it's going to cost our state dearly and grievously in terms of the state budget, which is already under huge stress, as I'm sure everybody knows, because it will take $3 billion a year out of the state budget, just for the expansion of Medicaid, plus cut 600,000 people off of coverage in Washington State. Okay? Now, regarding single payer, 100% agreement. And here's what I want to say. Right now is the moment when we have to pull all of our strength together to make sure nobody gets cut anything in healthcare, which right now focuses on ACA, Medicare, and Medicaid. we need to fight those battles in the weeks and months ahead. And as we do that, we also need to communicate among each other how can we strategize the best way to push this agenda to universal health care, single payer in the state, single payer in the country. We got to get there, but in the meantime, we have to protect people who are at risk of losing their benefits tomorrow and the next day.
I'd like to go off of the congresswoman who spoke before me about, and this question is directly for both Cantwell and Murray. Last time I checked, so this question is regarding the fact that they voted down an amendment that would have allowed Canadian drugs to be imported at cheap prices. Last time I checked, I haven't heard of mass quantities of Canadians dropping dead from poor regulation of prescription drugs. I do hear about thousands of Canadians who are addicted to opiates manufactured by prescription drug companies, just like we have here. And my other question for Senator Murray and for Senator Cantwell is, did the fact that pharmaceutical industries donated monumental amounts of money to your campaign play any role in this result?
So my timekeeper is telling me that we are pretty much down to our last question. So I did want to, before we take one more question, and I do want to apologize to the folks who didn't get to speak.
Katie wanted to make a remark toward what was just said.
Okay. I just want to remind people again that this is not the beginning and the end of this kind of thing. One, we'll have more town halls like this. Two, you can visit your offices, visit your senator's offices to share the story. Leave them up, call them, email. It's just as effective, if not more, than what we're doing tonight. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to your point as well. I mean, it's really important to remember that we're not the only country in the world that has a system in place to check drugs. You know, we're not the only country that has an FDA. You know, so Canada's got a really strong FDA as well, and their drugs are just as safe. So this idea that, you know, we can't get safe drugs from across the border is not a correct one. And additionally, there was a battle in Congress back when they did Medicare Part D to negotiate drug prices for Medicare, to allow for negotiation of drug prices so that they can be cheaper. And the pharmaceutical companies lobbied really hard against that and won. And that's why drug prices are so high even under Medicare and Medicaid. So we need to make sure that our senators are fighting against the drug companies, even if they're receiving money from the drug companies, to make sure that we can afford our medications.
Thank you. Next time we're going to do thumbs up, thumbs down signs instead of agree, disagree. We have one last question. Go ahead, on healthcare.
I am a person, I'm 56 years old. I live on SSI. That's $735 a month in the Seattle area. That doesn't go very far. I am dependent on Medicaid. I have a brain injury, I have a cervical and a lumbar spinal injury, and I have complex PTSD. So it's really hard for me to talk here. My fear is that not only is Social Security going to be affected, my Medicaid is going to be affected. But in addition to that, it's been difficult for me every day since this election. I cried and barely watched TV. When I heard Spicer say that they were going to come after marijuana, that's like impossible for me to deal with. I depend on marijuana. I depend on it every day. I can't afford from SSI to go and get a medical certification. I can't afford that. I can barely afford to live. I have to live with 2 grown adult children to afford to live in this state. I came from Texas to be here, and this is the most wonderful state. Let me tell you, I love it. I would like fight this Trump agenda, how they're going to protect my Social Security, how they're going to protect my Medicaid, because I can tell you what, people who have attempted suicide at one time or another, it is always an option for you. And when you feel like you have nothing, what do you do? Where do you go? I can't find a doctor that will take me with my Medicaid and treat my complex PTSD. I can't find one. I can find a counselor, but I can't find a doctor, and I can't get any continuity of care. Thank you.
Thank you for your courage to get up and tell your story. And that goes for everybody who's gotten up and told their story. And by the way, what a turnout. This is what democracy looks like. Okay, a quick comment about Social Security. You'll read in the paper, I saw it in a New York Times article yesterday, that Social Security somehow is contributing to the deficit. It is not. It is not. Social Security is fine for a number of years ahead. However, if you go into the future, there'll be a point at which it's not enough because the number of people on Social Security is going up, the number of people working and contributing is going relatively down. So, there is a fix, and it's called scrap the cap. Currently, earned income, your wages, your salary, is taxed for Social Security up to $127,000 a year. Every millionaire and billionaire, everybody who makes more than $127,000, they're only paying on that first $127,000. There is a bill, which is nicknamed Scrap the Cap, that would set $250,000 as the cutoff. So all earned income above $250,000 per year per person would be taxed for Social Security. That would not only make Social Security fiscally sound for 70 years to come, but it would allow for an increase in the benefits for SSI, for retirement, for survivors. So we're the richest country in the world, but it's so unevenly distributed that we don't get the benefits. So scrap the cap.
Thank you. We knew when we were putting the agenda together for tonight that it was going to be a little bit ambitious trying to cover all these topics. So I want to thank everybody who didn't get a chance to speak tonight. Bear in mind that we still have 45 minutes of unstructured question and answer time. And if it turns out that there's not really that many questions about the Russia connection, the Supreme Court, you may well be able to ask those questions again. Otherwise, my social media monitors alerted me that Poe Dameron tweeted us to say, "I took a train, a bus, and you did not show, senators. We demand our voices be heard." Did you agree with that? And from Facebook, Leanna Burge asked, "Can people say their names too so our senators can reach out for their stories if they want to?" Thank you. Reminder then, next time we have questions, if before you ask your question or whatever, say your story and say your name and where you're from. It'd be awesome. Thank you. So we're going to go into 20 minutes on immigration. My timekeeper is going to start timing now. And is Emma Moreno here to share her story with us? I don't think we got to connect before we started. Is Emma's here? Can you raise your hand? No. Is Shibangi here? Give her a hand, ladies and gentlemen.
be the activist. I'm the newly minted one. This is also a difficult topic, so I wrote my story and I'm just going to read it. Hopefully you're okay with that. So my story is about immigration. My immigration journey started in 1986. When fresh out of college in India, my family and I came to visit my sister who had immigrated here years earlier. I decided to stay, so I basically overstayed my visa. But I had a legal, clear, easy way of staying. I enrolled in a community college and got a student visa. So that was easy, great, pain-free. I was doing well. Fast forward to last year, I was trying to get a gas at Costco, and this elderly white woman decided that I passed her and that was disrespectful. So she decided to tell me to get out of this country and go home. Now, that's, it's a small incident, but I never experienced that in my adult life, and I was actually really scared. The woman tried to shove me. I called 911. Nothing happened. Police came, she left. I didn't press charges. It was all fine. But it really highlighted issue for me. The climate is changing. I don't feel as free and as carefree as I wanted to. And then a lot of you probably heard about the shooting in Kansas this past week. So this morning I learned that a friend of a friend knew the person who was shot. So the world is getting smaller and scarier, and there is really no need for it, right? Most of us have lived here for a very long time. I went to school here, I work here, I raised my children here. So this isn't something that I can just leave, right? This is my home. This is our home. My message to our senators is that I need them to keep fighting. I need them to lead by example. And I need them to not only disagree just to disagree with current administration, but I want them to lead with respect and with humanity and with love. And I want us to build bridges and not walls.
To open up to questions again, and I would ask if there's anybody in the house who has a personal story to share of how them or somebody they know who's affected by these terrible immigration policies. We really want to hear your stories, and we want you to speak to the cameras so that the senators can hear your stories too. We're going to give those folks first call at the mic. Otherwise, after we give them a fair chance, if there's other folks who have questions they want to ask, that's also too. I think we're moving the mics a little bit more into the light so that the cameras can record who's there. So don't be shy about it. If there's folks on the panel who want to say something on the subject while we're waiting for people to come up, that's okay.
Sure, I think you're really hitting a very important topic. Trump himself has made immigration the cornerstone of his campaign. I mean, he himself started his campaign by denouncing Muslims, by saying that Mexican immigrants are rapists and criminals. When you say that kind of message over and over again, that's going to have an effect. That's going to have an effect on how people view these groups. And the thing is, like, no community is fully immune to these feelings, and you're kind of stirring up the pot. you're trying to emphasize the darkest sentiments in people. In my own, I'm a professor, and at campus we've also seen an increase in the number of racial incidents. We had a Muslim student, for example, that she was a female student, that she was targeted by a group of people just because she was wearing her Muslim attire. In my own building, we've actually seen pamphlets for a white supremacist group. A professor from a different department, a political scientist, actually, he had to interrupt his class because a student came in and she was clearly affected by something, and then he asked her, everything okay? And then she said, I just can't focus on this class because I'm just coming into the classroom and there's all this Nazi propaganda out in the hallways. This is like supremacist pamphlets. They stopped the class, they went up there, and then they took pictures. And then he went back to his home, and then he wrote a message on Facebook, sort of reflecting about about what's going on, from his position as a professor. And so somebody asked him to make his post on Facebook public, and some of these groups got a hold of it, and he happens to be Jewish, so he's been personally targeted for the last weeks for actually expressing that. So I absolutely agree that there's something happening. The climate is changing, and we have real social science evidence that shows that things happen. People, you're stirring up dark sentiments in people.
Thank you. And we have first question, please.
Hi everyone, I'm a little nervous. I've never been up here like this before. My name is Alicia Ramirez. I am an American citizen, but I am the wife of a DACA recipient. I'm sure you heard a couple weeks ago, I forget his name, Daniel, his last name, was picked up by ICE. Ramirez, yes, also my last name. This whole thing with Trump has terrified my family. We're scared to, at night, we make sure our doors are locked. We're terrified. We're always looking over our shoulder. Is ICE going to come and pick up my husband one day? Are they going to come and say my husband has gang ties and take him away? I don't work. My husband works. He is a business owner. He is self-employed. If he were deported, my 3-year-old son, who is with me today, is over there, we would be homeless. We would lose everything that we have because we're barely surviving now as it is. My question for the senators is, I've noticed actually we have a few unity groups in Washington State, one up in Everett. And my question for them is, what are you going to do to protect my family? We shouldn't have to look over our backs, and we shouldn't have to live in fear. This is our home too. I can't even get on social media without being called racial names, I can't get on Facebook without being told to get back to my country. One person said they would put a bullet in my head if they ever saw me. What are the senators going to do to protect us, to protect my family?
So just to give some background, I'm sure you guys have noticed that in the last few weeks, there's been a lot of raids. There's been a lot of people that have been detained, a lot of immigrants outside of churches. There was a woman that was taken in from, she had a brain tumor, and she was taken from a hospital. There's immigrants that have been detained in courtrooms. So these are really, basically we have 600 immigrants were detained in the first week of February. So why is this taking place? Well, the reason for this is because Obama used to have these priority categories. Back under Obama, they used to essentially emphasize people that have committed some kind of crime. Those were the immigrants that essentially ICE and Border Patrol were paying attention to, right? Everybody else they would catch and release because they did not represent a danger to their communities. They were just like anybody else, just working and having a family. Essentially, there was new guidelines released by the Trump administration in the last couple of weeks, that essentially they do away with these priority categories, and now all immigrants are essentially a priority. All immigrants are deportable. So ICE, essentially, the rank and file that never quite agreed with this differentiation, now they essentially have a carte blanche to essentially look for anybody that lacks documents and try to get them into some kind of deportation proceeding. The only group that so far has been spared from that are actually DACA recipients. DACA essentially is a program that was created by Obama to protect children that have come to the U.S. With their parents who were enrolled in school, had a criminal background. There's about 750,000 of them. So they're a very sympathetic group. Even Republicans, 60% of them support their legalization, right? So they're a very sympathetic group. But we just saw 2 weeks ago a DACA recipient here in Washington State was arrested and taken by ICE. They claim that the reason why they're trying to remove his DACA status is because he has a gang affiliation. And the way they proved that, according to them, was because he had a tattoo that said La Paz. La Paz is basically his hometown in New Mexico. So it's a town close to Cabo, actually. So that's the way they're trying to prove that. And there was another arrested DACA recipient in LA, so there seems to be some fear that more and more DACA recipients could actually be targeted under these new directives.
Thank you. Yeah, do that. You can do that. Yeah.
I work with immigrant refugee students at one of the colleges locally. My name's Teresa, and one of the things that when all this started, I talked to my students about being activists, and things like that, and they said, we can't. What if we go out? What if somebody takes our card? What if we get sent back? And so, it's really on us who have all our papers and everything like that to stand up and speak up for people who don't feel safe. That's on a personal level too. Just the other day, just last weekend, a new neighbor showed up and she was at my door and shaking and terrified. Another person in our apartment complex had come to her door, been listening at the door, and when she opened the door and asked him what he wanted, he said, go back home, you fucking nigger. And this is right here, not far away from here. And that kind of thing I just could never have imagined a couple months ago that I would hear about. And I grew up in this state, and I'm a local, and I've never had that kind of direct experience, and it seems like it's happening very fast. And I told the neighbor, well, if anything happens like that again, call me, and I think it's also on us to show up when somebody's been picked on, when somebody's getting accosted, show up and wait for the police to come. So.
Thank you. I'm going to cut in here just for a second to let folks know that according to our timeline, we have about 7 minutes left. And I'm seeing people over here I want to hear from. I'm seeing people over here I want to hear from. So I'm going to ask you again, when you're asking your question, if you can keep it short, like 1 minute, 2 minutes, that'd be great. If you got a really good story. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks for letting me talk. Please, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Carlos, and I'm from Colombia. I'm here thanks to my mother that 18 years ago she decided to come to the States some way illegally, not through the wall, not through the Mexican border. She came in a plane. So. And for 18 years she has been in the States, and for 10 years she was here illegally until 2009 when she became a citizen. 18 years she has been working as a nurse assistant in a nursing home, and thanks to her I have this thing, this a green card, and one of the lucky ones. In my case, I am a professional musician, and for 3 years and a half I've been living here in the States, and I'm working in a lot of things, from baker to taxi driver, to the bus boy, to storage unit, and I'm working in a music store and I'm teaching.
Thank you.
And I wanted to say that in the name of millions of immigrants, illegals or no illegals, we are not criminals, we are not drug dealers, we are not breakers. We are really hardworking people. And yes, we are different. We have different the color of the skin, and some of us, we have a really strong accent, and it's hard to understand sometimes for you and sometimes for us. But that doesn't make us less humans.
Very, very, very short.
Very short. I just wanted to remind that this is not a racist country, and I just came back from Colombia, and it was really hard to explain to the people in Colombia, like, this is not a racist country, and it's true that there is racism, but the majority of this country is, the people in this country are nice people.
Thank you. I'm hoping we can hear you. Give a hand for that. Oh, I'm sorry, before you start. We do actually have somebody here who can help monitor. Kira, can you wave your signs? Thank you. She's our timekeeper. She's helping to make sure that everyone who's here gets to share their stories. So when you see her holding up the 30-second warning, 15-second, she's saying really need to wind and wrap it up so we can hear from everybody. Thank you for your understanding, please.
Okay, I'll try to do a nutshell. My name is Erin. I'm an educator. I'm a former Peace Corps volunteer. 20 years ago, I finished working for a conservation project in Kenya, and I came home with a Kenyan husband, expecting a child. And for 20 years, we reared him here in Seattle. And one of the mantras of the Peace Corps is to bring the world home with you, which I did. And being from Kenya and only being a fisherman, he started to work in a retirement home where he's taking care of elderly retirees for 20 years. And gradually, things changed, and he became increasingly aware of the violence towards Africans, which preceded our current regime, but nonetheless, with the election of Bannon and our KKK legacy, he has grown increasingly terrified even to spend any time outside the house, much less say that his name is Mohammed to anybody. And I have watched him just retreat into our home, scared to walk the streets. And I wonder what I have done to bring this man to this country, where his mother calls from a small village in Kenya to check to see if he's okay. And our current president is telling us that any country with Muslim populations needs to be banned from entering our country, regardless of whether they have any ill effect, 911 or anything else. And in the meantime, he treats our native populations who are fighting for their rights and are the real, true owners of this country with complete disdain, and sends the military to evict them from unceded treaty land. So I just would like the senators to please stand up for the immigrants of this country.
Good evening. My name is Usma, and my parents are from Pakistan. I've been a citizen for 25 years here, and my husband, who's up there, has been a citizen for 30 years. Between the two of us, we have two businesses, and at any given time, we employ 40 people. Over the past 25 years, we have paid millions of dollars in taxes. I have wanted to live in the US since I was this high, since I was a child, and I have faith in this country, and I am so glad that everybody showed up here to speak and to say how together we can make America great. My question is, when someone tells me, go home, what do I say to them? My sister is a doctor. She takes care of Medicare and Medicaid patients, and somebody at Macy's told her the other day, and she looks like me, same color, go home. What do we say to that? You know what I feel like saying? I'm Native American, and you go home.
My name's David. I'm from Seattle.
You can pick it up if you want.
I'm sorry. The subject of immigration is hard. It makes me quite emotional. I'm descended from immigrants from Eastern Europe who, not that long ago, went through what people are going through today. I guess I'd just like to remind our senators that the poem on the Statue of Liberty doesn't come with fine print. It's beats everybody. I would just close by asking my senators, why is it you're never indignant about what's going on? Why is Patty Murray saying she could work with Donald Trump? A month into the man's administration, it should be very clear to our senators there is nothing you can work with them on.
I would like to raise awareness to the H-1B visa program. This is a visa program that allows 65,000 people to come legally to this country as young professionals. They need to have a bachelor degree from an American university and be employed by an American firm. This visa program I applied several years ago and was rejected. The reason is that there is currently only 65,000 people that can get accepted. Some years, the visa quota gets filled up within a few minutes or hours on April 1st every year. This is a great visa program because it allows young professionals to come and work legally in this country. It has been under a lot of pressure, and the Trump administration is thinking of potentially getting rid of this visa program, which allows a lot of STEM people, for example, to come work legally in this country.
Hi, my name is Gabriella Kondriak, and I was 6 years old when my family and I came here as refugees from the Soviet Union. My father and his family were Jewish. My grandfather had to change his name because he was an author in Moldova and could not get published, being so explicitly Jewish. So he had to change his name. My father brought all of us here to the United States for a better life and for a fair and an equal shot at life. And it makes me very sad as a Jew and as an American citizen to know that our country is becoming a place where people are afraid to come to. And I hope that Senators Murray and Cantwell can fight to make sure that we have common sense immigration and we prosecute hate crimes and we defend the people that are targeted in our country. Thank you.
So we ran a fair bit over time, but I hope you would agree with me that it was worth it. And that is actually an excellent segue into our next topic, which is the Russia connection. Yeah, never thought I'd be saying that either. So I'm going to invite Nathan perhaps to share a little bit. And while he's speaking, I'm going to invite anyone up who wants to ask questions on the subject of Mr. Trump's shady dealings with Russia to come on up. Obviously, if you have a story about how your life was directly impacted by this, we kind of want you at the front of the line. Otherwise, if you have a question that our panelists can answer well, our senators, we invite you to come on up. I'm going to ask our timekeeper to set your time for 10 minutes on this one, so this is going to be a bit short. Nathan, did you want to speak a little bit?
Hello there. here to speak about Russia today. On December 16th, the White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer gave an interview to Politico magazine, and he had this to say. He said, "We have respect for the press, and when it comes to the government, that is something you can't ban an entity from. I think that is what makes a democracy versus a dictatorship." Yesterday, the White House banned Politico, the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, the Guardian, and the BBC from their press conferences. The New York Times was particularly disliked by the White House for a number of critical stories of the White House's relationship with Putin. The Times broke the story that the Ukrainian government's National Anti-Corruption Bureau had exposed Paul Manafort, Trump's campaign chairman, for receiving $12.7 million from pro-Russian political parties. Mr. Manafort had been helping the Russian government loot the Ukrainian government after their illegal military occupation. The New York Times had also written an article concluding that members of Donald J. Trump's 2016 presidential campaign and other Trump associates had repeated contact with senior Russian intelligence officials throughout the entire campaign. It should come as no surprise to anybody here that every single one of these news outlets that were banned was investigating the Russia connections between the White House. An attack on American media is an attack on American democracy. It's time to stand together in defense of our free press and speak out against the slanderous lies of this corrupt administration. So recently, Michael Flynn resigned, which was amazing. Now, I'm not sad that Flynn is gone, but it's important to understand the reason Flynn was asked to resign in the first place. Michael Flynn was asked to resign so Pence wouldn't be caught in a lie. Because Pence had spoken to Fox News and told him this. He said, "I talked to General Flynn yesterday, and the conversations that took place at the time were not in any way related to new U.S. sanctions against Russia." Basically, Flynn sacrificed himself for Pence so the White House can keep pretending they've closed the door on this entire issue. You see, the Washington Post, which is another news outlet that was recently banned, had run an article on February 9th breaking the story that the National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn, had privately discussed U.S. sanctions against Russia with the country's ambassador to the United States during the month before Trump took office. Trump wants you to believe that Flynn was some kind of a rogue spokesman, that he acted alone, that he had no relationship with Russia. You guys believe that?
Lock him up! Show the document!
That's right.
Lock him up! Lock him up! Lock him up! Lock him up! Lock him up!
So let's stand behind Senator Murray and Cantwell as they call for an independent and full investigation into this. Prosecutor, and nothing less than that will do. Let's ask for a real investigation, and let's hold Republican senators accountable for their efforts in this election. Every town hall for every senator and every state in this country needs to be filled with angry people demanding answers. Donald J. Trump is a traitor to the American people, and we're not going to rest until he's been impeached and put on trial for high treason.
Any questions about that?
Sir.
Hello. My name is Edmonds. I was born
in 1942 in Nazi-occupied Lithuania. In 1944, my family and I fled the Soviet invasion of Lithuania. So our family knows something about authoritarian regimes. And lately, it seems like the Soviet Union has followed me to the United States. Senator Cantwell, Senator Murray, what are you going to do to press any and all investigations of Russian ties and White House lies?
My name is Michelle.
Where are you from, Michelle?
Capitol Hill. I just want to thank the senators, and you can just I'm sorry I forgot your name, for keeping the focus on our elected officials and keeping them accountable to this country and to not being treasonous. I lived in Russia for 3 years. I know the children there. I know a lot of women in Siberia. They don't like their government any more than we do. So, in the interest of solidarity of people around the world, let's keep it focused on fighting kleptocracy, fighting oligarchy, and fighting corruption. I encourage the senators to tread the line between warmongering and creating tensions between countries and peoples, and instead really focus on holding the people who are in charge who are really causing these problems accountable.
You raised the microphone earlier, so I'll do the rock and roll star thing. So I'm Jennifer, I live in Shoreline, and during the presidential election, I do have a question. We heard Trump publicly say, Russia, come and hack us. In my view, that's treason, and that's the highest crime in the country. So we're investigating other things going on that we don't have the answers to, but we have this blatant, proven fact, him on video saying it in front of the country, come hack us, come commit this crime against our country. So is that not treason? I think it is, and what can be done about it? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janet Way from Shoreline also, and I want to thank all of you, thank Jonathan and all of you for putting this on. It's outstanding. And I do want to thank the senators for the work they've done thus far in pushing back on this administration, and so many times in the nomination hearings that they've attended, the hard work, especially Patty Murray did, to stop Paxton and others. So, but I know there's a lot of important questions that need to be asked, and I would like to ask them to stand strong for all of us against this treachery from the Kremlin. And the thing I'd like to ask them is, why is it that every time we talk about this subject, a lot of times the experts you hear say, well, we know that it had nothing to do with the outcome of the election. Well, I knew it on election night. At 9 o'clock, I just said, it was the Russians. I knew it. And so I think the evidence is there. And I know it's not going to be simple, it's not going to be easy. I'm old enough to remember Watergate and what it took, how long it took to investigate that. But I don't think it's going to take that long, but I think we have to be a little bit patient, and we have to keep the pressure up and work with these good women and our other representatives, especially in the House, because the House is where impeachment is So keep sending your letters and your phone calls to the
question, but as I understand it, the emoluments clause is a pretty broad statement, and it was intended so that the president and other senior people don't owe a foreign government anything. Don't you think that rigging the election counts as an emolument? Counts as an emolument, and I think we need to maybe be looking into that angle as well. That's all.
I did want to put this out there that anyone who has a story or a question to share, if our camera folks are willing, they might be willing to stick around after the event is officially over. And if you'd like to add to that video, we would love to see if we can arrange that. So we are going to go ahead and move on to our fourth and final topic of the structured question and answer, and that is Mr. Gorsuch and the Supreme Court. Yes, indeed, we waited for this. Particularly with regard to reproductive rights and Roe versus Wade, I would encourage anybody in the audience who wants to come up to ask a question about that. I did want to remind you that one of our panelists here tonight is Tiffany Hankins with NARDAL, and she would be glad, I'm sure, to answer any questions that you have. Is this a person with a question? I see one person. I don't see anybody at this mic yet. We might want to give deference to someone of the female persuasion who wants to speak about female reproductive rights. No disrespect, bro. Just saying. I'm encouraging people to come up. I see two people here. And why don't we go ahead and get started? And then if there's other folks who want to come up, you can do that. Yes.
Sam from North Seattle. I'm going to disappoint everybody because this isn't about reproductive rights, but it's sort of more about the practicality of opposing Gorsuch. What I guess is the value of opposing Gorsuch, given that it may be likely to force Senate Republicans to basically take the nuclear option of eliminating the filibuster. B, they kind of see that as a seat that they're owed because it was Scalia's seat, and they view it one way. I get the point, fair, but yeah, like they view it that way.
Is that basically the question, right?
Yeah, like what is the value? You're basically only going to lose political points. It's sort of my view.
It's an excellent question, and I'm not sure if we necessarily are going to come up with a really satisfactory answer to that. But I would encourage you to take it to. Are you a member of an Indivisible group already, or?
I'm going to the one tomorrow up in North Seattle.
I would go ahead and take that up, and I'll see if it's
something to think about.
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. Obviously, this is a topic that Narelle has been giving a lot of thought to. The two options, as you mentioned, are to filibuster this appointment. I think that the first step that our senators need to take, and that we are asking Senator Cantwell and Murray to take, is to make sure that they are asking the hard questions in these confirmation hearings so that we can actually get Gorsuch on the record on many of these topics that we care about. So that's the first step of what we need for them to be bold. The second thing that the decision they need to make is, do they filibuster now or do they filibuster later? Because there is, unless we discover the fountain of youth tomorrow, I do think that there will be several appointments that may be opening up this presidency. And so is there value in coming out of the gate strong? I think that that is an excellent question, and one that the senators need to take very seriously. Is there value in making sure that these people here and that the people in their districts who want them to be bold and want them to stand firm and to frankly stand for something, is there value in taking those stands right out of the gate, or waiting and doing it down the line?
That's a great answer. Thank you. Next question.
Hello, I'm Brenda DeJarden. If you just look at me, I'm a regular person. I have had an abortion, and through Planned Parenthood, I have also used birth control pills and been treated for an STD. And this all happened at Planned Parenthood. This is the most important thing that keep alive is women's rights and women's health to help themselves. Also, if you're a unless you support women's ability to have an abortion, I don't really think that you have much of a say in it. So that's just my personal opinion.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that there is a lot of value right now in sharing abortion stories. I know many of you are probably involved with those efforts to make sure that people know how valuable Planned Parenthood and other reproductive health providers are to the infrastructure of our healthcare systems and honestly for women's economic opportunity, right? And so it's really important, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Hi, I'm Leslie. I'm from Edmonds. I went to Planned Parenthood in 1971 for services, and in 1979, when I moved to Sacramento, California, I went to work for Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood provides 97% non-abortion related health care and reproductive. Both of our senators serve on committees that can have an impact on the current atmosphere in our nation's capital that is bound and determined to defund Planned Parenthood and cut off reproductive and health services to men and women throughout this country. I want to ask Senator Murray and Senator Cantwell exactly what plan they have, along with the rest of the Democrats who are in Washington, D.C., as disempowered as they are, what is their plan to assure full gender equality with regard to our health care and our reproductive freedom?
I don't want to take up too much time so we can keep sharing stories, but one thing that I think we know about Gorsuch and his record is that he opposes the Affordable Care Act mandate that contraceptives be provided without cost sharing. He wrote a dissenting opinion, and so we do know that those other services that you were talking about, Planned Parenthood and other reproductive health care providers provide that prevent unintended pregnancies. He's also opposed to that. So I'll let you, take the hypocrisy of that position.
Thank you. Sir.
Hi, my name's Steve. I'm from Seattle. And yes, definitely reproductive rights are an essential reason why we have to urge our senators to oppose the Gorsuch nomination. But there are many other reasons, and I just want to put one on the table that's not talked about much. Only the unexpected death of Judge Scalia prevented the Supreme Court last term from overturning basically the right of workers to have strong public sector unions. What happened to unions and public sector unions in Wisconsin happens nationwide, essentially one of the basic props of our ability to resist Trump and resist the Republican agenda is gone. And we know that Gorsuch has sided against workers every time workers' rights have come before him. So we will lose public sector unions if Gorsuch is approved. I think that's a reason not to hold our fire for the next nominee.
Thank you. Super good job.
I live in England, and I just want the senators to remember that when Obama put up Merrick Garland, they refused to meet with him. And then also when Hillary Clinton was going to be the runner-up, they said that they would not meet with any pick that she came up with. That's what John McCain said. So that we need to keep that in mind, that these GOP were not going to work with us when that was going to take place, and that this is a candidate who also is for Citizens United. And I know that most of America has said that we want money out of politics. So that's all I got.
While I can't really speak on abortion rights because I've never had an abortion, I can say that I am pro-choice. I'm more than that, I'm pro-education. But what I think is more important than the discussion about abortion rights right now is the discussion about women's rights to raise their own children. My son was violently taken from me without due process and trafficked through the King County court system for money. And this is happening all over the country.
You can go on Facebook, you can find the groups of mothers. It's primarily happening to women because they're the disenfranchised, of the two genders right now. So what I would like to know is why hasn't Maria Cantwell and why hasn't Patty Murray responded to my repeated requests for assistance and an audit and investigation into my case, why my son was able to be trafficked against due process and against all the evidence presented. So they've completely ignored me, they keep pushing it down, but if this is happening to me, I don't have a record, I have a college degree in attachment parenting, this can happen to any single person in this room.
Yes.
And more importantly than my right to kill my child in the womb is my right to raise my own child.
Thank you. I'm told that we are down to the last minute or so, but I really want to hear from these two folks, so I'm just going to ask you to try to keep it to like 1 minute and be real clear on what your specific ask is. Thank you.
Okay, hi again, guys. So when I was 17 years old, I was in a relationship with an abusive drug addict. I got pregnant and had it out of fear for my own safety and well-being. I got an abortion. Now I'm 25, now I'm a mom, but things have changed. I don't think I would be able to physically handle another pregnancy. It might kill me. And I want to make sure that my right to birth control is not infringed upon, because I should not have to get sick or die to have a baby that I cannot physically have or raise. That is not a decision for any man to make. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Beatrice, and I'm from Seattle. I have a short and simple question for Senators Murray and Cantwell. If you decline to filibuster Neil Gorsuch, if you decline to pull out all the stops against a Supreme Court nominee who is a direct threat to women's rights, if you decide that that is not a worthwhile matter at this moment, that it's not worth alienating political opponents, that it's more important to wait until a more convenient time or a more pressing issue, if you, in other words, decide that a woman's right to choose is a second or third tier issue that isn't worth extreme action, how, if you refuse to intervene against that, will you continue to call yourselves advocates for women, advocates for democratic values, or advocates for this country?
So we do want to honor people's time, and particularly the church who's so gracious about hosting us here from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. I believe my watch says it is actually 8:15. So we have a lot shorter time than we thought we were going to for unstructured questions and answers. But I do want to invite folks who really have something important they want to say. We want to give you that chance to do that. So if you want to come on up to the mic. We're going to ask maybe especially people that we haven't heard from, people who are representing marginalized communities. Yeah. So I'm seeing 3 people over here, I'm seeing 2 people over here, and they're coming on down. I will just ask you one more time, your name, where you're from, and try to keep it to a minute. Just really make a very clear, specific ask on what you want our senators. Thank you.
My name is Nicole Bratt. I'm a transplant from Colorado. I live in Mill Creek. I have a 4-year degree in biology with research emphasis on conservation and ornithology. I'm currently working retail because the science field is under attack, the EPA is under attack, and I cannot get a job. So, thank you, Mr. Jobs President. You're doing a wonderful job making America great again. One thing I do just want to let everybody know is that these EPA jobs that they're taking away, this is good, high-paying, well-paid jobs that have benefits, and, I would very much like to work. So, thank you, that's all I have to say.
I live in Seattle. I'm a speech-language pathologist in Seattle Public Schools. I work with students whose disabilities impact their ability to communicate. Some need support from a one-on-one nurse or instructional assistant to access their education. Others can't use their voices to speak and use a computer to activate with eye gaze. These students cost the district a lot of money, and IDEA guarantees them the right to an education. I want to thank the senators for opposing Betsy DeVos for the Department of Education. Now that Betsy DeVos is heading the Department of Education, what are the senators doing to protect the rights of our students, especially students with disabilities, to their education?
My name is Joe. I live over in the Green Lake area. And first of all, I want to say, in regards to universal health care, we are told that we are the richest country in the world. If that is the case, then we should have absolutely the best health care system in the world. Let's go and survey countries around the world that have universal health care and take from the best of them. And the other thing I want to say, the best way to make positive change in the long run is going to be, whether it's a local, state, federal level, vote.
Thank you. I'm reminded that we do have voter registration materials outside that you might want to pick up. I also wanted to mention that on our Facebook feed, Stephanie Barbet Hammer wanted to note that my mother had an illegal abortion during World War II. I know many, many women who have taken advantage of the availability of legal abortion in this country. Thank you for sharing that.
My name is Devin Woolman. I live here in Seattle. I'm an attorney, and I would like to know how the Democratic Party / the senators, what they are doing or what they will do to combat the red mapping that the Republican Party has done, as well as gerrymandering to compete not only at state legislatures but on the federal level, as well as putting Democratic representatives in districts that have never seen a Democratic representative, period. Thank you.
Two quick things. So our president said that he signed an executive order to put the Dakota Access Pipeline and the Keystone XL pipeline through, and he heard nothing, not one call from anybody. I disagree with that. No Dakota Access Pipeline needs to defend Native people's treaty rights and our water. And the second thing, our president said that he won the election and he won it without showing his taxes. He said, nobody cares about seeing my taxes and seeing what business taxes he has. I disagree, and I would like to say, and I hope that you guys will join me, we want to see your taxes, Mr. President.
So my name is Jacob Kaiganol. I'm from Shoreline, Washington, and one of the benefits of the Affordable Care Act is it prohibits insurance companies from limiting or denying coverage based on pre-existing conditions. And my question for Senator Cantwell and Senator Murray, and for everyone here, is do you have a pre-existing condition? And if you do, please raise your hand. Thank you.
I'm a Canadian American citizen and Washington voter. Having experienced both healthcare systems, I have to say that the Canadian one was vastly superior. And if they can make it work with a population of 35 million, why can't we make it work with 309 million? Why aren't you on board with this? I saw a rally when Bernie Sanders was talking about universal health care, and there's thousands of people as far as I could see. Then I went and saw both of you open up speeches for Hillary Clinton. There's maybe 100 people in the room. So if you guys agree with me that there should be universal health care, you guys should be leading it. Stick that in your campaign.
Hi, my name is Rue. I'm from Redmond, the Bel-Red area. I just wanted to say that the ACA, as well as the fact that the ACA is super important to me, and that the president has been trying to roll back all the transgender protections is extremely, extremely disappointing and scary. As a gender fluid person myself, who is also dating 2 trans men, it's so important that these are kept in line. Our lives matter, and we need to be protected. We are affected by this rollback. We are affected by the ACA not being able to stay. If it goes away, we won't be able to get any health care at all.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christina Melnichenko, and it really means a lot for me to be standing here talking to you guys and to these 2 empty chairs right here, because my parents immigrated here from the Soviet Union as well. And they came here to pursue an America with a free market and with equal education and with regulations in place that ensured that everybody could have the opportunity to become whatever they wanted. So my parents threw away their amazing careers and their social circles, their knowing of the language and the culture and all of that to purely pursue a land that offers those things. And it troubles me to see Republican senators who are the checkpoint. They are the checkpoint in America. Trump is who he is. Voters are who they are. They have been grotesquely misinformed. They have been fed propaganda. The Tea Party did what we're trying to do based on lies, and they were successful. So the fact that these Republican senators are not doing their job is ridiculous, because I know what my parents warned me about. They warned me this. They said, you know, the scariest thing about communism is that they didn't force it on us. They convinced people.
Yes.
A small group of people controlling the resources and the rules is going to make us all better off, and we're all going to be great. So when you remove regulations and you tell me that you are empowering me, it makes me want to run to my senators and say, do your job.
Thank you. We're going to move on. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Michael. I'm from the North End here, and I have two things I want to say. One to everybody here, and one to our senators. First, for everybody here, in terms, we've talked about abortion and Planned Parenthood a little bit already. I want to make a point that abortion opponents, they truly believe that life begins in conception, so they're not going to be able to reach them on that. But in terms of specifically Planned Parenthood, that is not the only thing they do. I have gone to Planned Parenthood. I have got services. Obviously, I'm not the kind of person who can get an abortion. So I think that when we talk to people who are against abortion about Planned Parenthood and keeping the funding alive for Planned Parenthood, we need to focus on all of the other things that they do, which are very vitally important. Now, specifically about to the senators here, I used to live in Korea. I got into a motorcycle accident in Korea. My insurance in Korea was such that I paid out of pocket every time I went to the hospital, but my entire hospital bill at multiple visits after the motorcycle accident was less than was about around $100 out of my pocket, and insurance paid for the rest of it. Insurance is not, and even then, the insurance is not anywhere near as expensive there as it is here. I think more important potentially than focusing on insurance here is focusing on healthcare costs.
Yes.
The difference, there's a huge cultural difference regarding healthcare in the United States versus Korea. In Korea, you get a slight cold, you go to the hospital, you go to the doctor, you get it checked out. Because it's affordable. It's cheap. You can do that. And because of that, you're generally healthier because they have preventative care. Here, as an American, even in Korea, that was my instinct was, I get a bad flu, I'm sick in bed for an entire week, I just stay home and wait it out. That's my instinct as an American, and I think that needs to change. And we need to make it affordable for that to change.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask the folks who are lined up here to stick around because it is actually 8:30. And again, in order to honor time, we kind of need to wrap it up. But if our camera folks are willing, we can stick around and maybe we can still get you on video even though we're kind of wrapping things up. I did want to offer a couple things for your consideration though before you go. It was reported in the Seattle Times, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that Senator Murray, a fifth-term senator, has held one public town hall since mid-2013. And that Senator Cantwell, a third-term senator, has had 0 public town halls. Would you agree that our senators can and must do better than that? Starting on Monday, we start planning for April. Thank you. We've got a couple more words from Mr. Loud, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Just a word as part of the call to action. I've been speaking before and listening about healthcare and Social Security. I urge everybody to call, write, and visit Senators Murray and Cantwell regularly. Don't let up, and insist that they oppose each and every attempt to repeal the ACA, to turn Medicaid into a block grant program, or to voucherize Medicare. Lastly, to insist that they resist all efforts to cut back or diminish Social Security and its benefits. Secondly, if you have friends, co-workers, family in any of the 4 congressional districts in Washington State that are currently represented by Republicans, there are 4 of them, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 8th. Please contact your friends, anybody you know, and urge them to hammer on those congressional representatives on all these fronts. We're strong in Seattle. We need to be stronger in the red zones. And finally, I'm going to post on the Seattle Indivisible website the contact information for 2 very important statewide coalitions. If any of you belong to organizations, I encourage you to look at that and get your organizations involved. Healthcare is a human right, and Social Security Works Washington. They're both part of the national movement. They both need your help.
Thank you. So also wanted to mention invitation to Tuesday rallies that are ongoing, and they are organized by Seattle Indivisible. You guys have been an awesome audience. Thank you so much for coming tonight. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. Folks who still want to stick around and share their stories on video, you stay up front, and we will do the best we can to make sure you get a chance to do that. Thank you all.